Describe the key points of the revised global air quality guidelines recently released by the WHO. How are these different from its last update in 2005? What changes in India's national clean air program are required to achieve these revised standards? So who is going to decode the question for me? We should explain in detail regarding the revised guidelines. Okay. Why do you think so? Ramakrishnan, please unmute yourself, or you are sitting in the library. Ramakrishnan? Acha, okay. We should, anyone else? What is the main demand of the question? Are there multiple demands?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. First, we have to changes by WHO. Then we have to identify challenges of National Clean Air Program.
Perfect.
And then we can
changes and then challenges in India's
National Clean Air Program.
Challenges in India's National Clean Air Program. Perfect. So perfect. So how are you going to show the changes?
Based on sir current affair, if we exactly know, then
no, I am not expecting you to know it, but I'm saying that if you have to show a change, how are you going to show the change? Let's say there was some comparison. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So Stanzin has written, Abhishek has written table. So the best way, so why table is important, and so that is why you should write more and more tests and then attend the discussions. Because when I was taking the discussion of 2022 test series, there were hardly 40-50 students, whereas we have 4,000 students in our program, 4,500. So because a lot of people do not write the test. If you write the test, you will understand time flies out in 3 hours. You don't, if you write the mains examination, despite knowing everything, you will not be able to attempt more than 15 questions, because time runs out very quickly. So that is why you should practice, because whenever you have to compare something, the best way is to draw charts where you can write about 2005 guidelines, 2015 guidelines. And that will lead to the answer of both the questions. So describe the key points and how are these different. So although there are two demands of the question, but a better strategy, instead of first writing the key demands of 2021 guideline, then how is it different? So the difference, and then talking about challenges, you can see that it has, you've already shot both time limit as well as word limit. So instead of this looks like a better approach. Is it not? Yeah. So just giving you some context, because there is nothing conceptual in this question, and when it appeared in September, we thought that this is very relevant for prelims next year, not for mains next year. And so it was not included in the mains compass. However, second part was very well discussed in the QIP. You will see that. So I have no hesitation in accepting that global air quality guidelines, because it was completely factual, because the data were updated. And since UPSC has never asked questions on data, because what are you going to describe in this? Just what is the level of AQI, what is the level of ozone, PM 2.5, PM 10, sulfur, nitrogen, that is what. So we did not think that it has become such an issue which could be asked in the mains examination. But we knew that what are the problems with India's mechanism to fight air pollution is an important theme. So that is why the second part was covered. Problems or challenges related to India's air pollution program. Okay. So basically,
excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I want to ask one thing. If we do not know anything about a question like this,
yeah,
and if we are falling short of attempting the questions, can we write some general points like the improvements in certain parameters? Can we?
So, I mean, this question is actually very subjective. It depends upon how general those points are. It depends upon how what is the question. So, for example, sometimes questions are themselves very general.
Yeah.
So, if the question is, let's say, describe the methods to bring inclusive growth in the country, for example, and you know that inclusive growth is a very multi-dimensional topic. There are a lot of factors which go into making India's growth story inclusive, because we know that India's growth is not inclusive. And inclusive growth is a growth which is distributed across all the stratas of the society, all the sections and stratas of the society. That is very simple, but how do you bring about it? So now in answer like this, you can talk about poverty alleviation program, you can talk about infrastructure development, because if a village is not connected to the highway, how is it going to benefit from the growth, and how is it going to contribute to the growth? Because there are both the factors to the growth. If you're not contributing, you will not get the benefit. Is this point clear? Salaries are highest in the service sector in our country is because these guys contribute the maximum to India's growth story. You have seen the contribution of service sector. So you can write 5, but when the question is extremely pinpointed, when the question is extremely direct, the scope of writing general points reduces significantly.
Because sir, अभी recently एक गौरव बुधानिया topper जो थे, तो उनका मैंने वो जो क्लास हुई थी वो सुना था मैंने, and he talked about certain concepts like sister concepts, mother concepts,
sister and daughter and mother concept, na?
Yeah, and grandfather, like this. So he told us that if you are unaware of even a point about a certain question, you can write something about the
basically
concept from where all that concept is generated.
So all those people who are not aware about what these concepts, what he's meaning by these concepts. So for example, let's say in the topic of infrastructure, for example, there are different kinds of infrastructure. Then currently you have dedicated freight corridor. So there's like, generally I'm talking about not just energy, but transport infrastructure. Now imagine if the question is on, let's say, precisely on privatization of the railway, or what problems is Indian Railway facing right now. So Indian Railway is facing a lot of problems. For example, antiquated or outdated railway lines, lack of high-speed trains. Is this all these points clear? There are 7-8 issues with Indian Railways. But if you see, lack of investment, PPP model is a problem over here, is a problem over here, is a problem over here, and is a problem over here. So what mother concept means is that you identify the main domain of the question and write the points which are relevant over there as well. So if we talk about issues with India's infrastructure sector, so the number one issue is, as identified by Rangarajan committee, the lack of private-public partnerships. And then you can see this problem, that it is a problem in case of roadways also, but then lack of public-private partnership is not a problem in case of railways, and nor it is a problem in case of airways, because all the airports are being made by private sector.
So sir, should we go for such a thing?
Not. So trust us.
Yeah.
When we cover the topics, we cover it in such dimensions. And if you attend those classes, since you are already our students, you will get all the classes, you can watch them, you get all the notes. So when we are doing such multi-dimensional analysis, let's say for example solar energy. Now in this particular single slide, this slide was covered in 45 minutes because it has all the dimensions related to solar energy. And similarly there was a slide there, similarly there was wind energy, nuclear energy, hydrogen energy, hydrogen cells, we talked about geothermal, we talked about hydropower, we covered all the sources of energy. So it is not a coincidence when 4 out of 5 questions have been asked directly from our resource and one question which was left was from NCERT, because we cover all the dimensions. So my what I tell to students is that instead of going into these toppers talk, just apply your brain. And
sir, another topper was Divyam Chaudhary. He also talked about Divyanshu Chaudhary. He also talked about a question was like circum ring of fire.
Yeah, circum-Pacific ring of fire.
Circum-Pacific ring of fire.
Yeah.
So he also said that he was not completely aware of that concept.
See,
but
have these people seen their answer copies?
No, sir.
Do they know how much marks did they get in their circumpacific answer and mother and daughter concept? हमें कैसे पता कि इनको उस वाले कंसेप्ट लगाने से कितने नंबर मिले?
Yeah.
UPSC
Correct.
never comes out with either the answers or the copy. It just tells you the final marks.
So we should be precise about what is being
We
asked.
should be precise in our communication. And the idea is that if you do not know, if you are absolutely zero about a concept, don't write about it. But if you know something about it, you are sure, then you write it.
Right,
Otherwise,
sir,
it creates a very bad impression. If you, let's say, are a teacher, evaluator, and if you're reading a copy, what you will say after reading, let's say, 2 pages of unrelated content, you will understand that this person is trying to fool me. And that is the impression we get when we evaluate our copies. So why won't the UPSC examiner get the same feeling?
But sir, there is also one more point,
Yeah.
that it is specifically mentioned in the UPSC syllabus that UPSC only want to test the general understanding about the concept,
Yeah,
and
no
not specialization is required. So so what will you say about this?
So why do you think whatever we are discussing, do you think any specialization is needed? I was able to explain Green Grid initiative so
But
easily.
sir, अगर देखा जाए तो these things are not that much common, which a common man understands. Even if you are a PhD, you do not know anything, even the basics about these things. I feel so.
Yeah.
Sir.
तो करे क्या, यूपीएससी को लेटर लिखे?
नहीं सर.
कर कुछ सकते नहीं है, एग्जाम में आए हैं तो आंसर तो करना ही है.
यस, तो वही मैं पूछ रहा था कि मतलब अपन को क्या बेटर स्ट्रेटजी रहनी चाहिए?
बेटर स्ट्रेटजी ये है कि आप पूरा प्रिपेयर करिए. अगर आप सेलेक्ट होना चाहते हैं, जब तक यूपीएससी अपने कहे पे खरा नहीं उतरता है कि भाई अब जनरल क्वेश्चन पूछे और स्पेसिफिसिटी से दूर चला जाए, यही कर सकते हैं अब, क्योंकि हमारे पास तो कोई ऑप्शन है नहीं अभी.
यस सर, यस.
ठीक है, तो डिस्क्राइब द की पॉइंट्स तो हमने डिस्कस कर लिया. इसका आंसर स्ट्रक्चर वी हैव डिस्कस्ड. नाउ लेट्स डायरेक्टली लुक इनटू द आंसर. सो इन द introduction, it would be a very nice idea to talk about the guideline themselves, because then you are going to compare the guidelines and you can see that all the parameters of AQI, air quality index, so our own air quality index is based upon WHO guidelines which were released in 2005, because what our AQI has is PM 2.5 and 10, ozone, nitrogen oxide, sulfur, carbon monoxide. And specifically because of this reason, our AQI also has the same parameters. So this is what you have written in the introduction, and then you can compare them. And this is the reason why we did not took it up in the mains revision classes, because we thought that this is about prelims. Because in prelims, UPSC has asked which of the following components do not form the part of AQI, and question in environment section in prelims level is highly unpredictable, most difficult section, whereas in mains it is highly predictable. So you can see that this is what UPSC expected you to know, the key points, because this is the key point. One page, this guideline of one page does not say anything else and just talks about various components, various pollutants, their earlier levels and their current levels. And you can see two, because annual average and 24 hours period. So it should not go above 10 on an average in a particular year, but in a day it should never cross 25 microgram per meter cube. Is this point clear? So I think there is nothing more to talk about. What we should talk about rather is about what changes in India's national clean air program are required to achieve these standards. That is more important, and that is why it was covered also, because that is an issue. So we talked about problems with India's water management, air management, and soil management. So this half question was there. So when it comes to India's air pollution and its management, there are a lot of issues, right? The first issue with India's pollution management, air pollution management, lack of data. Now, when I say lack of data, you would say that AQI covers around 15 to 20 cities. Then you have national air quality standards, NAQS. But all these are just standards. So for example, AQI is not conducted across the country. It has selected some cities which we think are highly polluted, and in order to make the citizens and the residents of those cities aware about the kind of air they are breathing in, we have created a system of AQI. But what data should we actually be collecting would be at the source. So for example, in India, there are discharge norms that if you are producing electricity in a thermal power plant, your emissions cannot breach this standard. But would it not be a nice idea to install a machine on that particular thermal plant so that a live data is communicated to Central Pollution Control Board, CPCB? Because ultimately, source is the problem creator. Vehicular pollution is a major source. You have sorted that out by insisting on BS6 engines as well as the fuel. So that problem has reduced to a great extent. But what about other major polluters? What about the source of those pollution? Then, if you read Air Pollution Act, if you read the notifications from Utilizing Environmental Protection Act 1986, they never give authority to anyone to take proper action when they find that the laws or the rules are being flouted. So for example, when CPCB releases guidelines about various kinds of industries, about their water effluent and air effluent, and when CPCB conducts a field visit and finds out that they are breaching those limits, they do not have power to take action. Powerless watchdog. They do not have power to take action. And that is why no industry in the country takes CPCB very seriously. And you can understand, had they taken CPCB very seriously, there would Ganga, Yamuna, all rivers would have by now become transparent. Because CPCB, in fact, has a lot of regulations related to the quality of the water being released. Is this point clear to everyone? Then there is a problem of funding. So in this case, the powerless watchdog is applicable to NC National Clean Air Program as well. The program has been floated for major cities of the country, urban areas, but there is no, first of all, there is no commanding authority and the power has not been delegated to that particular authority, right? So there are issues of funding. When National Clean Air Program was launched, it was announced in the budget that funding of 300 crore would be given to NCAP, but it was not mentioned whether that would be given every year or would it is a one-time investment. And since then, no fund have been allocated to NCAP, including the yesterday's budget. Is this point clear to everyone? Then when it comes to management of air pollution in general and National Clean Air Program in particular, these programs are not ambitious, and that is applicable both low ambition, and that is applicable not just for quality purposes, but also for the coverage. So when it comes to the standards which India releases, they are already very lax. So for example, if you look into the air quality index of Sweden or Norway right now, for example, check the pick any of the capital cities, for example, let's say Copenhagen, check their air quality index in Denmark. It would not be more than 4 to 5. The place where I live in Delhi has on an average 280 AQI on the same parameters, and that is tolerable in our country because the limits which we ourselves have decided to put on ourselves is extremely lax. So, and that is not just for qualitative but also for coverage. So to start with, we are applying a limit which is very high, but then we are not applying the limit to every place in the country. Okay, so there are also other issues because we are running out of time as well as the space. This is the discussion which we had. You can see all the points were there on the screen as well. So this was in reference to air pollution, and we talked about absence of compliance mechanism, data challenges. Health is not a priority in combating air pollution. So whenever we talk about air pollution, health is not at the center somehow. And that is why the framework is so lax. And then toothless watchdog, NCAP, we talked about it. Inadequate financing, urban-rural disparity. So whatever standards we have are for urban areas. There are no standards for rural areas. And you can see that when it comes to the nitrogen emission, when it comes to methane emission, when it comes to crop burning, almost every contribution is coming from the rural areas. So this is the problem with NCAP, and this is what you had to write there as well. So we need to have a stronger mandate, need for higher ambitions, need for a fiscal strategy, because current level is very low. So time has come to build strategies that consider topographic, climatic, and other common elements that contribute to air pollution. Our current strategy is extremely fragmented. So just like in water management, we have a concept of watershed management. All of us, I think, are aware about watershed management, right? We know about watershed management. What is it? Anyone? What is watershed management?
So management of the flowing water. Basically,
management of the flow. That would be river water management. Flowing water is river. What is watershed?
So, groundwater.
Groundwater is underground water.
So actually, it is the bank.
Rainwater.
Let one person complete and then take over. Yeah.
So actually, this is the area like the area around the river.
Area around the river.
Yes, sir, the management of the water which flows along the river.
Which flows to a particular river. Management of river basins. Yeah. So
Yes.
if you look into, let's say there is this river. We know that most major rivers have a lot of tributaries. So let's say this is the major stream. Now, yeah, catchment area. Catchment area is the absolutely right term. We know that ultimately the topography decides where the rainfall falls and if it meets this particular river or not. So for example, let's say that if this river is surrounded by mountain areas, let's say that these are mountains and it emerges from a glacier melting over here. Now, if a drop of rainfall is falling on that side of the mountain, would it ever come to this and meet this particular river? It would not. Only those droplets which are falling in this region would ultimately become a part of this river. Is this point clear? And so this is the catchment area from where it is catching water, and this is called watershed. And we'll discuss it in later classes. What is watershed management? So the way we have found out that just like we are managing water, now we have resorted to watershed approach. Similarly, in the management of air pollution, we should move to airshed management. But in air, it's much more difficult because air across the globe is connected, but still there are certain pockets which are more polluted because of some local reasons. And so we should figure out those local topographic, climate, and other common elements that contribute to air pollution. Is this point clear? So that is how it's like a way forward, or you can say, so this is, yeah.
Sir, I have question in the first part itself.
Yes.
So, sir, it is very difficult to remember the exact number in an exam time.
Yeah.
So, how to handle such situation where we do not know the exact numbers?
What is your name?
Nitesh.
Nitesh. See, Nitesh, this exam is never about competing with yourself. It is always about how well or how bad you are doing with respect to others. Just to give you an idea, I have still not met a single person after the mains who has written the first part of this answer. So similarly for prelims, even more for prelims, because here even 1 mark can decide 10 ranks. But in prelims, even if you clear the cutoff by 1 mark, you're as good as a person getting 160 marks. So the point which I'm trying to make over here is that the people who top the exam are not writing all the questions with all the dimensions. They are just writing more answers with better quality than other people who are not getting selected. So even after scoring 10, 15, 20 ranks, they might say anything. But we have seen these people. So, for example, Divyanshu Chaudhary and Gaurav Budania both were part of this QIP program and mains test series, and we have interacted with them even before, and we have their answer copies. Karishma Nair, every one of our students. So, of course, when they were writing answers for us during our mains test series, they were better than the others. But they have never attempted all the questions in such a way so that they could get they could score 150 marks. They were better than other people, that's for sure. But they could never attempt all the questions. It is not possible to attempt all the questions with full accuracy. So the people who get selected, what they do is that they attempt 15 questions with very high accuracy, dimensions are more covered. Then there are 2-3 questions where less number of dimensions are covered, some parts are missing, and there are 1-2 questions maybe where you were not able to write any answer. And that fluctuates year on year. So some year GS paper 2 has been very difficult. So in that particular year, almost everyone left 3-4 questions. Is this point clear?
Yes,
So
sir, my question is, if we not able to remember the exact number, can we write the approximate number there?
You can. So for example, in this case, if you could recall from your newspaper reading that this time they have reduced the limits of air pollutant. That is the only thing they have done. So you could have written, because that is directly correlating with your answer. So even though you do not remember the exact limit, but if you are able to recall that the 2021 WHO air pollution guidelines are much more stringent than 2005, that is highly relevant.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.